Čekaj, vprašaj, ko je ta, od koja familija ta druga, ta žena pozna? Koja familija? Imate...
We've agreed so far that the cities of Pristina, Prizren and Rastovac are secure environments, and that's where we will start the movements. Today we're taking these people into Pristina. They'll be received there by us. Mother Teresa Society and the other NGOs who work with us will be there. We'll give them some assistance when they arrive, some food and non-food items, and then we'll help them go to their areas in the city where they want to return to. And that process, as I say, will extend over the next weeks throughout the country as the environment is secured by KFOR.
The president of the Albanian American Civic League, and Danielle Srimak, the director of the Institute for Balkan Affairs. Joe, what are your feelings as you sit here tonight at 8:15 Saturday night?
Horror, disgust. When you look at these pictures of tens of thousands of people at the end of the 20th century, we say, how could we let this happen? I brought this issue to Congress in 1986. Albanians who just accidentally came across my father speaking Albanian, because he was born in Italy, but he was an ethnic Albanian, like so many who fled the Ottoman Turks 500 years ago, and there he was, still speaking Albanian. And the next day, 20 Kosovars come to my house in New Rochelle to tell me about a place called Kosovo. That's 86. By the end of that year, I had introduced the first resolution for full republic status, equivalent to independence today.
Are you saying that the Kosovars, the Albanians in Kosovo, were being persecuted in 1986?
Oh, no question about it. I have a book dated 1992. Our Civic League began in 1989.
So you feel this has been going on for a long time,
Absolutely.
not really provoked by the NATO bombings?
Absolutely.
Danielle, do you agree with Joe on that?
No, I think it's not going to help Albanian refugees if you start bombing Serbian civilians in downtown Belgrade. What is going to help both Albanian refugees and Serbs figure out a way to live together in Kosovo is to stop the bombing immediately, get back to negotiations in terms of some kind of autonomy for the region, and make sure Kosovo stays within Yugoslavia where it belongs, but that Albanians and Serbs and other ethnic groups can live together, share power. I think it's important that the U.S. not support the KLA, who are terrorists. They're connected to all sorts of terrorist organizations around the world. Absolutely. And that's when the problem started, when these KLA guerrillas started this war.
So Danielle, you were saying to Joe that the problem started with the KLA guerrillas, and Joe is saying, no, it's the oppression of the Serbs. That's the, go ahead, speak to Danielle.
You cannot be that naive, Danielle. In 1989, Slobodan Milosevic walked into Kosovo, and he literally took away everything the Albanians had. They had their own parliament, their own police force, their own hospitals, judiciary, everything. He made it into a Warsaw ghetto and a concentration camp for 10 years. If you read the State Department country reports, from that time on, it's a litany of horrors what the Serbian regime, led by Slobodan Milosevic, has done to the Albanian
Danielle,
people.
you don't see it that way at all, is that right?
Well, the reason why the autonomy was taken away from Kosovo, and I was in Belgrade in 1989, when 10,000 Serbs from Kosovo walked to Belgrade to beg the government to impose some kind of jurisdiction there, because Serbs were being persecuted, not by all Albanians, but some of these radical groups who were, attacking nuns in the monasteries,
so you're
raping
that
Serbs.
The Serbs were oppressed by the Albanians, and I think at some point, in other words,
it's total lie, exaggeration. This is the trick that Hitler pulled in the Sudetenland when he used a German-speaking minority so that he can walk in there, and then he'd never stop walking. He went into Poland, Czechoslovakia. Look what Mr. Milosevic did. He went from Kosovo, then to Slovenia, then to Croatia, then to Bosnia. He killed brutally 250,000 civilians in Bosnia. Danielle, where have you been? Wake up.
Look,
This
Charles,
man didn't just start
this is
last
part
year.
of the problem
This man
that-
is the monster. He's the last vestige of Stalinist communism in Europe, and he must be removed, and we should not stop the bombing. We not only should not stop the bombing, we should arm the Kosovo Liberation Army the way we did the Croatians in Bosnia, and that will bring Milosevic to the table.
Danielle, what's your opinion of Mr.
Well,
Milosevic?
Charles, it's a sad day when a former U.S. congressman is condoning the KLA terrorists. The State
not
Department has
terrorists.
called them
That's
terrorists.
the way you
condoning
characterize
bombing
them.
of Serbian civilians, which is not going to help Albanians.
Danielle, what do you think of Mr. Milosevic as
That's
a
a good
leader?
question.
What do you think of him?
I think, unfortunately, Mr. Milosevic is the same kind of leader as other people in the Balkans. You have neighboring Croatia, President Tudjman, who kicked out 250,000 Serbs and still not allowing them to
Well, does
return.
that
You have a
justify
lot
it?
of problems there, but you have problems with leaders around the world, and the U.S. can have a useful role by promoting democracy, negotiation, and peace. Bombing is not going to help
There will
anybody,
never
and
be
certainly
peace
U.S.
in the
troops
Balkans
getting there
with
is not going to help
Slobodan
anybody.
Milosevic. There is no way. This man has been indicted by the U.S. House of Representatives last September, the U.S. Senate. These are not unanimous resolutions last June, the European Parliament last October, and now we see that Louise Arbour is seriously considering to make public or to at least announce some kind of indictment against him. Why would we want to do business with a war criminal? Why are we dealing with a person like
Well,
this?
the United States needs to deal with anybody that can help promote peace in the region. Kosovo
cannot
needs to
promote
stay
peace.
part of
He promotes
Yugoslavia.
war.
And Kosovo needs to stay part of Yugoslavia. The KLA is a group that the United States should not be supporting, and we should immediately help these Albanians return to their homes, get international observers in Kosovo to ensure this happens, and let's bring peace. That's what America's about. Not about sending U.S. troops into another Vietnam.
Danielle,
not about
I
Americans
was under the
dying.
impression that's what we were trying to do. Now, maybe the accord wasn't something that Mr. Milosevic should sign, and you could really debate that, but America was trying to do that before NATO started the
Right.
bombing. It just didn't seem to work out. It never does seem to work out. In my opening remarks, I'm talking about the negotiations with the Japanese. And, of
Right.
course, you go back to Chamberlain and Hitler, and I'm sure there was negotiation in Vietnam and all through the thing, and everybody, you have a person representing your point of view, a person representing your, and we never come to it, and we always seem to have war. Joe, is that just inevitable? What are we doing?
Charles, the Albanians wanted and still want independence, yet they signed on an agreement with very limited autonomy. They were thinking that they would be partners in peace with the United States. Obviously, that's not what Slobodan Milosevic wants. What he wants is ethnic cleansing. He wants to clean out Kosovo. He's got some design that needs this kind of action that you're seeing now because he wants to redraw the map of the Balkans to his suiting. Now, why is that? Well, because he wants to control everything. He controls the media. I mean, he apparently controls the message that Danielle is giving us because many Serbs are saying that. They're getting this message from a state-run agency called Tanjug, from their people.
Is that right, Danielle? Is that where you're getting your point of view?
Well, look, you know, Mr. DioGuardi is completely trying to emotionalize this whole issue. The question is, Kosovo should stay part of Yugoslavia. It's been Serbian land. It's their Jerusalem. Albanians
Sure.
should have the right to live there along
was
with Serbs.
Albania
But you
before it was
cannot
Serbia.
form a greater Albania by attaching Kosovo with these KLA terrorists at the head to
All
Albania.
propaganda.
That's when the problem started, and that's what we have to get back to. The problem, as you said, Charles, with negotiations is, yes, we got to some point, autonomy. I think that's a good idea, and that's the starting point. But what the Yugoslav government didn't want is U.S. troops in Kosovo. And frankly, I don't think Americans should want that. I think that would be a meddlesome and a wrong thing to
Danielle,
do.
do you believe that the Serbs have any responsibility in this refugee tragedy that's taking place right now?
Well, partially we have to figure out who is doing what to the Albanians there. I'm sure some of these claims are true. I'm sure some of them cannot be corroborated. But the other thing you have to
Well, who
keep
do you
in
think is
mind
driving these hundreds of thousands of people out of Kosovo?
well, primarily fear, because ever since NATO started bombing, you also had some Albanian villages bombed. The other thing that I think the Yugoslav
but you
government is
think that
trying...
they're all just making up these stories
That's
that
not what
people are
they're saying.
coming to
No,
their
I don't
house
think
and
they're all
ordering them
making
to
up-
leave?
No, I don't think they're making up stories. Some of them may be, but I think you have to understand that currently the Yugoslav government is engaged in trying to get the KLA to disarm them, to disband them. And in the past, the Albanian civilians behind which the KLA was hiding would get hurt. And in a way, they wanted to get the civilians out of the way so they could get at the KLA, disarm these terrorists, and then have the Albanians return. And I think you'll see that happen when the war's over.
Charles, 15 seconds.
Yeah, let me say this. The KLA has never been put on a list as a terrorist organization. We faced Gelbart off in a hearing, and he backed right off when he mistakenly used that. And as far as Jerusalem, Kosovo being there, Jerusalem, the Illyrians, the Albanians have been there for 10,000 years. The Serbs came there in the 6th century A.D. This has always been Albanian land. Milosevic has poisoned the minds of the Serbian people. He certainly has poisoned them against the Albanians. The anti-Albanian racism for the last 2 or 3 decades is unbelievable. When he came in, he just brought it to a new level. Hitler did the same thing. Now, as far as sovereignty, we hear Danielle talk about this great word sovereignty. Under international law, the right to national sovereignty is not absolute. And many, many people feel today that Slobodan Milosevic has lost the moral right to lead the Albanian and the Serbian people. And we have a vital interest here because we've heard it over and over again. If this war spills into Macedonia, you will see 2 NATO allies at each other, and that's Turkey and Greece. So there is a reason for us to be doing it. And as far as Kosovo, Kosovo had an equal right to Serbia in the Confederal presidency of the former Yugoslavia. It wasn't just a suburb of Serbia. If you listen to Danielle, you would think this was just a rural suburban area of Serbia.
I don't think the war is going to spread at all. This is about, you know, Yugoslav, southern Serbian region of Kosovo. Albanians want independence to create a greater Albania.
Not at all.
It's about Yugoslavia and Albania and the local Albanians.
On that note, thanks to Danielle Srimak, Joe DioGuardi.